I, a king remembered for his fierce determination and unyielding rule, left a legacy that still sparks debate centuries later. Known as the Hammer of the Scots, he was feared by his enemies and revered by his allies. His reign was marked by brutal wars, political maneuvering, and an ambition to unite Britain under his control. But behind the battlefield victories and towering castles lies a more complex story. Edward's decisions not only shaped the future of England but also strained his relationships with those closest to him, including his own son. What drove this powerful ruler to take such bold and sometimes controversial actions? With each conquest, Edward solidified his authority. Yet the price he paid left scars on both his kingdom and his personal life. His wars with Scotland, the rebellious Welsh princes, and his clashes with the nobility reveal a ruler determined to forge a legacy of strength. But what was the true cost of his ambition, and how did it shape the future of the monarchy? As we look back on his reign, the questions surrounding his leadership only grow more intriguing. Early life and background. Edward I, also known as Edward Longshanks, was born on June 17, 1239, in Westminster, London. He was the eldest son of King Henry III and Queen Eleanor of Provence. His birth was a significant event for the English royal family, marking the continuation of the Plantagenet line. Edward's family was at the center of the English monarchy, and his early life was shaped by the responsibilities and expectations of being the heir to the throne. Edward's father, King Henry III, ruled England during a time of political turbulence. Henry's reign faced challenges from powerful nobles and discontent among the people. His mother, Queen Eleanor, was originally from Provence in France, and her marriage to Henry was part of a strategic alliance. Growing up in this royal environment, Edward was exposed to the complexities of governance and diplomacy from an early age. Edward's education was designed to prepare him for the responsibilities of kingship. From a young age, he received instruction in various subjects essential for a future king. His education included lessons in military strategy, administration, and diplomacy. Edward was taught to read and write, skills that were crucial for managing a kingdom and making informed decisions. His upbringing was heavily influenced by his parents' ambitions and the political climate of the time. Edward's father, Henry III, faced frequent conflicts with rebellious nobles and challenges to his authority. This tumultuous environment provided Edward with first-hand experience in dealing with political unrest and the complexities of leadership. Edward was also trained in the art of warfare, a crucial aspect of his future role as king. His education included learning about battle tactics, weapons, and the logistics of commanding an army. This training was vital for someone who would later become known for his military campaigns and efforts to expand English territories. Edward's early life was shaped by the ongoing conflicts and political struggles of his father's reign. One significant event was the Barons' War, a conflict between King Henry III and a group of powerful barons led by Simon de Montfort. This war was driven by dissatisfaction with Henry's rule and demands for reform. As a young prince, Edward was involved in the Barons' War, fighting alongside his father against the rebellious nobles. This experience provided him with valuable military training and insights into the challenges of leadership. Edward's role in the conflict exposed him to the harsh realities of ruling and the importance of managing both military and political affairs. The challenges faced by his father's reign also influenced Edward's views on governance. The constant struggle to maintain control and address the grievances of powerful nobles taught Edward the importance of strong leadership and effective administration. These lessons would shape his approach to ruling once he became king. Edward's upbringing in the royal court also introduced him to key figures and advisors who would play significant roles in his future reign. He developed relationships with influential nobles and learned about the political alliances and rivalries that were crucial for maintaining power. These early experiences helped Edward build the skills and connections needed to navigate the complexities of kingship. Rise to power. Edward I's path to the throne was shaped by his involvement in the Barons' War, a conflict that profoundly impacted his early years. The Barons' War erupted during the reign of Edward's father, King Henry III. As a result of growing discontent among the English nobility, many barons, led by Simon de Montfort, were unhappy with Henry's rule and sought significant reforms. As a young prince, Edward was directly involved in this conflict. At the age of 17, he took part in battles and skirmishes against the rebel forces. Edward's participation was not just symbolic, he played a real role in the military campaigns. His involvement included leading troops and engaging in combat, which provided him with practical experience in warfare and leadership. The conflict was intense and difficult, with both sides suffering significant losses. Edward's experiences during the Barons' War gave him a first-hand understanding of the challenges of military leadership and the complexities of managing a divided kingdom. The war also exposed him to the political dynamics of the time, shaping his views on governance and power. Edward's path to the throne was marked by both personal and political challenges. After years of conflict, Edward's father, Henry III, was able to secure a fragile peace. However, Henry's reign was marred by ongoing disputes with nobles and repeated unrest. Edward's role in these struggles demonstrated his commitment to his father's cause and his growing influence within the kingdom. Henry III passed away in 1272, while Edward was on a military campaign in the Holy Land. This event marked a pivotal moment in Edward's life, as he was now the heir to the English throne. Edward returned to England to assume his position as king. His ascension was met with mixed reactions. As the kingdom was still dealing with the aftermath of the Barons' War and ongoing challenges to royal authority, Edward's return was not an easy transition. He had to navigate the complexities of a kingdom that was still recovering from years of conflict. His first task was to address the issues left behind by his father's reign, including discontent among the nobility and unresolved political tensions. Upon becoming king, Edward faced several immediate challenges. One of his first priorities was to stabilize the kingdom and assert his authority. The political landscape was fraught with tensions, and Edward needed to demonstrate that he could effectively govern and bring order. Edward focused on consolidating his power through various means. He worked to strengthen his position by making strategic alliances with key nobles and addressing their grievances. This approach helped him secure support from influential figures and stabilize the political situation. Another significant challenge was managing the financial and administrative aspects of the kingdom. The cost of Edward's military campaigns and the ongoing need for resources put a strain on the royal finances. Edward implemented reforms to improve the efficiency of the tax system and better manage the kingdom's resources. Edward also had to address the legacy of his father's reign, which included dealing with issues related to land ownership and the distribution of power. He worked to ensure that his authority was respected and that the kingdom operated smoothly under his rule. This involved negotiating with various factions and making adjustments to administrative structures. In addition to political and financial challenges, Edward faced ongoing threats from external enemies. His reign was marked by continued military efforts to secure and expand English territories. Edward's determination to strengthen England's position on the international stage required careful planning and effective leadership. Edward's efforts to consolidate his power were not without difficulties. He faced opposition from those who were resistant to his authority, and struggled to balance the demands of various groups within the kingdom. Despite these challenges, Edward's ability to navigate the complex political landscape and implement effective reforms helped him establish a strong foundation for his reign. Military campaigns and expansion. Edward I's reign saw significant military activity, starting with his campaign to conquer Wales. By the late 13th century, Wales was divided into several independent principalities, and Edward sought to bring these regions under English control. His goal was to secure his rule and extend English influence over the entire region. In 1277, Edward launched his first major campaign into Wales. This invasion was well planned and executed with a considerable military force. Edward's troops moved swiftly and decisively, capturing key Welsh territories and defeating local leaders. The campaign aimed to bring stability and consolidate control over the region. Edward's military strategy involved not just defeating Welsh forces but also establishing a lasting presence in Wales. This approach included not only military actions but also a significant construction effort. Edward understood that maintaining control over Wales would require more than just military victories. One of Edward's most notable strategies for securing his hold over Wales was the construction of a series of impressive castles. These castles were not only fortresses but also symbols of English dominance. They were strategically placed throughout Wales to control key locations and serve as bases for further military operations. Edward's castle-building program included several notable structures. Among them were the castles at Conwy, Carnarvon, and Harlech. Each of these castles was designed with advanced fortification techniques of the time, featuring thick walls, strong defensive positions, and strategic locations. The construction of these castles was a massive undertaking that involved significant resources and labor. The castles played a crucial role in Edward's efforts to control Wales. They served as administrative centers, military bases, and symbols of English power. The presence of these formidable structures helped to suppress Welsh resistance and solidify English authority in the region. Edward I's reign also saw significant military campaigns in Scotland, known as the Scottish Wars of Independence. These wars were a series of conflicts between the Kingdom of England and various Scottish factions seeking independence. Edward's involvement in these wars was driven by his ambition to extend English control over Scotland and assert his dominance. The Scottish Wars of Independence began in earnest in the late 13th century. Edward's first major campaign in Scotland occurred in 1296. He launched an invasion and achieved several initial successes, capturing key locations and defeating Scottish forces. Edward's army advanced rapidly, and he secured important victories, including the capture of the Stone of Scone, a symbol of Scottish kingship. Despite these early successes, Edward faced strong resistance from Scottish leaders. The most notable of these was William Wallace, who led a significant rebellion against English rule. Wallace's forces achieved a major victory at the Battle of Stirling Bridge in 1297. This defeat was a significant setback for Edward and highlighted the challenges of maintaining control over Scotland. Edward responded to Wallace's rebellion with further military campaigns. He sought to subdue the Scottish resistance and reassert English authority. His efforts included a series of battles and skirmishes aimed at breaking the Scots' resolve. Edward's military campaigns in Scotland were characterized by both large-scale battles and ongoing conflicts with local Scottish leaders. Throughout the Scottish Wars of Independence, Edward I faced several crucial battles that shaped the outcome of the conflict. One of the significant battles was the Battle of Falkirk in 1298. In this battle, Edward's forces defeated the Scots, including those led by William Wallace. This victory was an important strategic win for Edward, but the conflict continued. Another major battle occurred at Bannockburn in 1314. This battle was a decisive defeat for the English forces and a significant victory for the Scots, led by Robert the Bruce. The defeat at Bannockburn marked a turning point in the Scottish struggle for independence and challenged Edward's efforts to maintain control over Scotland. Edward's military campaigns in both Wales and Scotland required careful planning and execution. His strategies included both direct military actions and the use of fortifications to control key areas. The construction of castles and the deployment of troops were central to his efforts to expand English influence and secure his territories. Legal reforms and governance. Edward I's reign was marked by significant legal and administrative changes, aimed at improving the governance of England. One of his key contributions was the introduction of the Statutes of Westminster. These statutes were a series of laws enacted to address various issues within the kingdom and to bring about much-needed reforms. The Statutes of Westminster were introduced in two main phases: the Statute of Westminster in 1275 and the Statute of Westminster II in 1285. The first statute focused on improving the legal system and addressing abuses. It aimed to enhance the efficiency of the courts and to protect the rights of individuals. For example, it introduced measures to prevent the misuse of legal processes and to ensure that justice was served fairly. The second statute, often referred to as Westminster II, built on these reforms by introducing additional legal measures and administrative changes. It dealt with issues such as the protection of property rights and the regulation of the local courts. These statutes were part of Edward's broader effort to create a more orderly and fair system of governance. In addition to the legal reforms, Edward I implemented a range of administrative and financial changes to strengthen his control over the kingdom. One of his key goals was to improve the efficiency of the government and ensure that resources were managed effectively. Edward introduced reforms to streamline the administration of justice and enhance the functionality of the courts. He aimed to make the legal system more accessible and efficient, ensuring that cases were handled promptly and fairly. These changes included measures to reduce delays in legal proceedings and to ensure that judges were well-trained and impartial. Financially, Edward worked to improve the kingdom's revenue collection and management. He introduced reforms to the tax system, making it more systematic and fair. These changes were designed to ensure that taxes were collected more efficiently and that the burden was shared more equitably among the population. Edward's efforts included restructuring the way taxes were assessed and collected, which helped to increase the kingdom's revenue and support its various needs. Edward I was also focused on centralizing authority to strengthen the power of the monarchy. During his reign, he worked to bring more control over the kingdom into the hands of the central government. This effort was part of his broader strategy to consolidate power and ensure that his authority was respected throughout the country. One of Edward's key strategies for centralizing authority was to enhance the role of the monarchy in local governance. He took steps to ensure that royal officials and representatives were actively involved in managing local affairs. This included appointing royal officers to oversee various regions and ensuring that local leaders adhered to royal directives. Edward also worked to streamline the governance structure by reducing the influence of powerful nobles and other local authorities. His efforts included curbing the power of local barons and increasing the direct control of the monarchy over regional matters. This centralization of authority was aimed at creating a more unified and cohesive administration, reducing the likelihood of dissent and ensuring that royal policies were implemented effectively. Challenges and controversies. Edward I faced significant opposition and criticism throughout his reign, both from within his own kingdom and beyond. His policies and actions often sparked disagreements among his subjects and political opponents. One major source of opposition came from the English barons. Edward's efforts to consolidate power and centralize authority led to conflicts with these powerful nobles, who were accustomed to considerable local influence and autonomy. The barons were resistant to Edward's attempts to impose new taxes and legal reforms that they felt undermined their traditional rights and privileges. This resistance sometimes erupted into outright rebellion, with the barons challenging Edward's decisions and authority. Additionally, Edward faced criticism from various quarters for his handling of foreign affairs. His aggressive military campaigns, especially in Wales and Scotland, were not universally popular. Many people questioned the wisdom and morality of his military actions and the significant resources they consumed. Edward's approach to foreign policy, which often involved heavy-handed tactics and costly wars, was a frequent subject of debate and dissent. Edward I's treatment of the Welsh and Scots was a major point of contention during his reign. His military campaigns against these groups were not only challenging but also controversial. In Wales, Edward's conquest involved both military force and the construction of numerous castles to enforce English control. While these castles were effective in establishing a strong English presence, they also symbolized the oppression of the Welsh people. Edward's rule was marked by efforts to suppress Welsh culture and autonomy, which led to ongoing resistance and resentment. The Welsh viewed Edward's actions as an invasion and an attempt to undermine their independence. The situation in Scotland was even more complex. Edward's attempts to dominate Scotland led to prolonged and bitter conflicts. His military campaigns aimed at bringing Scotland under English rule were met with fierce resistance from Scottish leaders like William Wallace and Robert the Bruce. The Wars of Independence were characterized by intense battles and significant losses on both sides. Edward's harsh measures and attempts to impose English control over Scotland were seen as brutal and unjust by many, further fueling Scottish resistance. Edward I's policies and military campaigns also led to substantial financial burdens and political unrest. His ambitious military projects, including the wars in Wales and Scotland, were extremely costly. Funding these campaigns required heavy taxation, which placed a significant strain on the kingdom's finances and the people's resources. The financial pressure from these wars led to widespread discontent among the English population, who resented the high taxes and economic hardships they faced. Moreover, the constant demands for funds to support Edward's military endeavors contributed to political unrest. The financial strain caused by the wars and the subsequent taxation generated widespread dissatisfaction among the populace and led to increased political tension. Edward's efforts to centralize authority and impose his will on various regions of the kingdom were often met with resistance and conflict. Death and legacy. Edward I died on July 7, 1307, while he was on his way to continue his campaign in Scotland. His death marked the end of a significant era in English history. Edward's passing had an immediate impact on both England and Scotland. His death left the kingdom in a period of transition, as his son, Edward II, took over the throne. Edward's death was a turning point for his military campaigns and political strategies. The ongoing conflicts in Scotland, which were a major focus of his reign, faced new challenges under his successor. Edward I had been a relentless and determined ruler, and his death meant that his ambitious plans and policies had to be continued or adjusted by those who came after him. His passing left a power vacuum that affected the direction of English politics and military actions in the years that followed. Edward I's legacy is closely tied to his military campaigns and legal reforms. His extensive military efforts, particularly in Wales and Scotland, left a lasting mark on both regions. The construction of Welsh castles, which were designed to consolidate English control, became symbols of English power and dominance. These fortifications played a key role in shaping the landscape and governance of Wales. In Scotland, Edward's campaigns were initially successful but ultimately led to prolonged conflict. His attempts to control Scotland faced fierce resistance, and his legacy in Scotland is viewed with a mix of respect for his military skill and criticism for his harsh tactics. Edward's efforts to bring Scotland under English rule had lasting effects on Scottish history and the ongoing struggle for independence. Edward's legal reforms also had a significant impact on England. The Statutes of Westminster, introduced during his reign, were important legal measures that aimed to improve the justice system and governance. These reforms helped to create a more organized and fair legal framework, which influenced the development of English law and administration. His efforts to centralize authority and streamline the administration of justice contributed to a more effective government. The long-term effects of Edward I's reign were profound for both England and Scotland. In England, his legal and administrative reforms laid the foundation for future developments in governance and law. The Statutes of Westminster continued to influence English legal practices and administrative procedures long after Edward's death. His efforts to centralize authority helped to strengthen the power of the monarchy and shape the future of English politics. In Wales, Edward's military campaigns and castle-building program left a lasting legacy. The castles he constructed became key features of the Welsh landscape and symbols of English rule. The impact of his conquests was felt for many years, as Wales remained under English control and continued to be integrated into the Kingdom of England. In Scotland, Edward's attempts to control the region had enduring consequences. The resistance against his rule contributed to the ongoing struggle for Scottish independence and shaped the relationship between England and Scotland. The conflicts and battles during Edward's reign set the stage for future developments in Scottish history and the quest for national identity. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to our channel and giving us a thumbs up. Your support means a lot and helps us continue making great content. We'd also appreciate it if you could share this video with your friends and family. If you have any thoughts or questions, feel free to leave a comment below. We love hearing from you. Stay tuned for more exciting videos, and we'll see you in the next one.